update from Labrador Gold, which trades on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the symbol LAB. Joining me today is Lab's President and CEO, Roger Moss. Roger, how you doing today?
Doing very well, thanks, Megan. I'm actually out in snowy Newfoundland today.
Oh, wow. Lucky you. So today we're going to discuss your Hopedale project, where last week you provided an exploration update from work completed in 2023. Now, to start things off, could you quickly introduce our listeners to the project?
Yeah, sure. I can do that. Just a quick note on our disclaimer here. Obviously, these presentations have forward-looking statements in them, so your listeners should be aware of that. So Hopedale is it's also in Newfoundland and Labrador, but it's in the Labrador part of the province, and it's a project that we've had since 2017, and it was in fact the first project in Labrador Gold, as it is called right now, and we've been working up there on and off since 2017, going up most years other than the 2020 and 2021 because of COVID. So we've actually done quite a bit of work up there, and what we see is that it's a very large property, district scale, and it's actually the licenses that we hold cover most of the Florence Lake Greenstone Belt, and even though it's in sort of east central Labrador, which you might think is incredibly remote, it's actually on tidewater, because there's a fjord, Ugjutuk Bay, that comes in from the Atlantic. So you can actually boat in from the Atlantic right alongside the Greenstone Belt. So it's not as remote as it might seem on this map. This is the Florence Lake Greenstone Belt, most of it anyway. And you can see the pinks and the greens and the purples, different rock types in the Greenstone Belt, and the red squares are our licenses. So we have 5 licenses there, and it covers about 43 kilometers of the strike length of this Greenstone Belt. So it's probably about 75–80% of the Greenstone Belt is what Labrador Gold holds in this Hopedale project. It's underexplored compared to Greenstone Belts elsewhere in the world, and even though we've been working there for 5 or 6 years, we're still only scratching the surface up there, and there's a lot more to be found up there, I'm sure. And we know, for example, that Greenstone Belts elsewhere in the world can be very prolific hosts of gold mineralization. We just have to look at the Abitibi Greenstone Belt in Ontario and Quebec, and there's so many major camps in that Greenstone Belt that have produced a phenomenal amount of gold. And more recently, what we've seen here at Florence Lake is that there's also potential for copper, nickel, and zinc, in addition to the gold mineralization that we see. So since we've been working up at Florence Lake, we've actually found 7 significant mineral occurrences. And when we arrived up there, the only one that was known was this Thurber occurrence up here, right in the northernmost license, and that had been found back in the 80s, and that was a significant gold occurrence, but not much had been found around there in addition to this occurrence. But the work that we've done up there, and we'll look at it in the next slide, I think, has shown significant gold potential. And then later on, we've found zinc here at Jasmine. There's some nickel and cobalt at what we call Misery right there, and then most recently down here at Rusty Ridge and Last Resort, there's also some significant nickel anomalies. So there are other occurrences. You can see Starship, which is right here, and it has some gold anomalies in soil samples. but it hasn't been advanced much more than that. So there's a lot of potential here in this greenstone belt to find different types of mineral occurrences, mineral deposits, in addition to the gold that we're focused on initially when we first went up there.
So early last year, the company announced some results from your Thurber target at Hopedale. As a refresher, could you run us through some of those results?
Yeah, so this is the what we call our Thurber license. It's the northernmost license of the Greenstone Belt, and you can see here that what we're looking at is about a 3-kilometer strike length. You can see that here, and this strike length of mineralization shows up in both the soil geochemistry and the rock geochemistry. So what we see on the map here are basically the rocks the gold and rocks, and some of the occurrences I mentioned. The Thurber Dog down here already. That was the previously known gold occurrence, and we have gold up to over 11 grams a ton there. We've found more occurrences up at Thurber North, up in the north there, Thurber South, very original names down here, and probably our best occurrence that we found was this, what we call TD 500, which is right here, and you can see the grades up here, up to about 21 grams a ton. These are all grab samples, and but very significant. So you can see that that 3-kilometer trend in the Thurber license is significant for its gold anomalism. In addition, what we see right down in the south, and we can see that right here, is a copper occurrence called Capac, and that's had some really good samples for copper in grab samples. So we can see they're up to 10% copper in the grab samples, and up to about 9 grams a ton silver. So we have copper and silver occurring down here, right in the south of that 3-kilometer trend. We did a bit more detailed work in 2022, and these are some of the results that we got there. Channel sampling. This is the TD 500. As I mentioned, it's probably our most significant gold occurrence that we found, and again, you can see some of the significant results here, about 2.9 grams over just over 5 meters, and 4 grams over 5 meters. So a significant gold occurrence with some starting to get some dimensions to it. And then at Capac, you can see here again, we didn't get the 10% grades over any distance, but we still get significant greater than 1% copper over up to about a meter thickness. So that's the Capac showing in the south.
And last week, the company provided an update from Hopedale, highlighted by the discovery of the fire ant occurrence in your most southern claims. Can you walk us through this target and some of the other occurrences that were highlighted in this release?
Yeah, so this is our map of the different occurrences again, and what we announced last week was really the results from our work last year, as you mentioned, and our focus last year was to look more at the potential for copper and nickel, and we know that we have really nice gold anomalies up here in the north, and the Thurber claim, as I mentioned, But we also know that in these greenstone belt environments, there are opportunities for other types of mineralization, and so this is what we were looking at. And part of the reason for this, of course, is that there has been a big push on for critical metals, and nickel, copper, and zinc are on Canada's critical metals list. And so we decided that this was something that we would look at in more detail. We had just during our gold exploration, we come across the nickel and obviously the copper occurrence. So we just decided to follow up, and these are basically the results from that follow up, and in terms of what we found while looking more into the base metals than into the gold anomalies. But sometimes when you're looking for something, you find something else, and that was the case last year as well. We got a brand new gold occurrence, very high grade, the highest grade that we've seen on the property to date, 106 grams of gold with 20 grams a ton silver. And that occurs right down in the south, and it's actually very closely associated with this Rusty Ridge nickel anomaly. And Rusty Ridge and Last Resort, right down in the south, down here, significant nickel anomalies in both rock grab samples and in soil samples. And it's something that's developing very nicely, and certainly it's looking like it has quite a bit of potential, with Rusty Ridge, the anomaly there now extending over about 550 meters, and at Last Resort we have a nickel in soil anomaly that's coincident with the magnetic high, and that's striking over about 1.5 kilometers. So significant nickel anomalies down there. Then this Jasmine, which is where we found some zinc in both soil and rock, and that's something that we hadn't seen before. And so again, a new occurrence of zinc up there. And zinc is interesting because it's usually in these types of environments, it's usually associated with massive sulfide, volcanogenic massive sulfide type deposits. And so we may have some potential for that style of mineralization up at Jasmine. And then the Thurber boundary occurrence is like way up on the boundary of this northern claim. It's at this point it's basically copper in soil anomalies, but it is the highest copper value that we found in soil on the property in all the years that we've been working up there. So so there is some significance to that. This is just going in a little bit more detail into the different occurrences. You can see here fire ant with the gold values there. Fire ants here. Rusty Ridge would be coming down here. So very closely associated. The fire ant occurrences in felsic volcanic rocks. Rusty Ridge is all ultramafic volcanic rocks, and so it's very close to the contact between the two. And this is Rusty Ridge and Last Resort. And you can see Rusty Ridge up here in the north is straddles a mag high and mag low, but Last Resort, all these red or pink dots are anomalous soil samples. They're greater than 97.5% percentile, which is very anomalous. And this is what stretches over 1.5 kilometers. And you can see underneath here, there's that mag high. So a very nice coincident anomaly of the soil and the magnetic high, which I think is quite significant.
From a mineralization standpoint, you're seeing multiple styles throughout this district. Is this common for greenstone belts?
Yeah, it is. We see volcanogenic massive sulfides, as I mentioned, zinc rich and copper rich. We see nickel. Mostly the nickel is associated with ultramafic volcanic rocks. We see these in greenstone belts, and obviously gold. Greenstone belts all over the world are well known for their gold deposits, and this is just a map that I put together. And what we see here, we see some of the major gold camps in the Abitibi. Timmins here, 70 million ounces. Kirkland Lake, 25 million ounces. Larder Lake, 14.5 million ounces. And then here, Red Lake is up outside the Abitibi, 27 million ounces. And what I've done is these are the outlines of the greenstone belts, and this here is the outline of Florence Lake to the same scale. And so you can see that certainly in terms of the size of the Florence Lake Greenstone Belt, it has potential to host significant gold mineralization. And I think the part that we've been looking at, this up here would be the Thurber area, where we found most of the gold mineralization. Down here is probably looks more like a nickel type environment, where we've seen that Rusty Ridge and Last Resort. So, but yeah, I mean, if you look at these greenstone belts and you look at the size of Florence Lake, there could be a lot of potential here.
So you have 8 target areas throughout this large project area. For our listeners, which would you call your highest priority targets and why?
Oh, that's a tough question. It's no, let's go back to that this map of all the occurrences. I think, again, going back, our gold is basically up here on the Thurber claim. Probably, I've mentioned TD 500 several times. That's probably our most advanced gold target. We've already done some channel sampling there. We've got decent grades over good widths. So that would be a priority target for sure. And I'm just going to go down to sort of south here, Capac. Really good copper grades. We don't have a good sense of what that copper rich zone is doing. So obviously it's a great target, but probably not the highest priority. And then I'm going to skip all the way down to the nickel at the bottom here. Just the amount of nickel that we see at Rusty Ridge and Last Resort in these surface samples, grab samples, and soil samples, that's really exciting, and I think that has to be a priority target, and it's something that we want to look at again this year, and hopefully be able to advance those 2 target areas to the drill stage.
Thank you so much, Roger. To cap things off, can you summarize your work to date at Hopedale and what excites you about this project?
Yeah, I mean, as you can see, we've done a lot of work. We started off with the gold, and we've outlined that 3-kilometer strike length up on the Thurber license in the north. We have seen other occurrences, the zinc, the copper, and even at Misery. I didn't really mention what we had at Misery here, but there is nickel and cobalt at Misery, which is significant. We're still, that's sort of way down the list a little bit, but as I said, Last Resort and Rusty Ridge priority targets. Fire Ant is interesting. Don't know how big that's going to be, but the highest gold that we've seen on the property so far. I think just the diversity of mineralization styles and also the size, the size of the property is what's exciting. And I think as we continue working up here, I think we're going to have some pleasant surprises.
Well, once again, we want to thank you for your time today, Roger, and we look forward to having you back on soon for another Labrador Gold update.
Thanks very much, Megan. It was a pleasure.